This video will be covering the topic of prime factorization. Be sure the date and topic are at the top of your page. The essential question that guides this video is, how can we find all the prime factors that multiply to form a number? Be sure to record that at the top of all of your pages when we get set up for our video notes. Before we talk about prime factors, we just want to take a moment to remember the term factors in general. So you'll often hear me talk about factors as building blocks of a number, and a factor, when multiplied by another factor, is what creates a whole number. Two factors multiplied together makes a whole number. Once we know about factors, we can talk about a term called factorization. And factorization is when we have a string of factors. So more than just the two that would make a whole number, but in this case we have perhaps two or more, a string of factors that multiply to create a product. Which then leads us to today's term, which is prime factorization, which is a string of prime numbers that multiply to create a product. And I want you to just take a moment for yourself to think about whether you remember what a prime number is. And if not, I want you to go back and look at your notes from a previous video or from class to help you remember. Now, I like to do my prime factorization with a factor tree, and you might have seen these in perhaps 4th or 5th grade. So my factor tree, I could take a number and I'm going to go ahead and break it up into parts. And those parts are factors that multiply to make the product of, in this case, 30. So I know that 3 times 10 makes 30. And what I then want to notice is that one of these numbers right now is prime. This 3 is a prime number. It's on our prime numbers chart in our spirals. We've talked a little bit about primes before. 10 is not prime, so I'm going to keep going. And then I'm going to think, what two numbers multiply to make 10? Well, I have 2 times 5. And when I look at 2 times 5, both of those are prime. So I'm circling the numbers that are prime because that's sort of like the end of that tree branch. And now that I've gotten to the end of the tree branch in all directions, I now know a string of prime numbers that multiplies to create the number 30. And it would be 3 times 2 times 5. That, if I think about it for a second, right, 3 times 2 is 6, times 5 is 30. That means I have completed the prime factorization of the number 30. So we're going to try just a few here. I'm going to put a number on the page and we're going to create factor trees. But you'll probably notice throughout this that there's more than one way to build your tree. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video and try to make a factor tree for the number 72. And then we'll unpause it. So you'll pause and try this. And when you unpause it, we'll compare and see if ours are the same. Hopefully, even if we build our tree differently, we'll end up with the same string of prime numbers at the end. How'd you do? I broke my 72 into the factors of 8 and 9, and from there I broke them down all the way to the prime numbers that made all together would make 72. You might have chosen a different path. Your branches might look different, but hopefully at the end you have 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. They might be in a different order, but hopefully we have the same numbers as our set of prime numbers as we finished our prime factorization. Let's try another one. Let's go ahead and try the number 120. And again, think to yourself, what numbers multiply to make 120? And work your way down until all you have left are prime numbers. How'd you do? Again, we might have set these up differently, but in the end, let's see if we have the same prime factors. So I have 2 times 2 times 5 times 2 times 2. And again, they might be in a different order, but hopefully we have those same values, because if I multiply those together, and I can double check with my calculator if I need to, if I multiply that set of 5 numbers together, I'll get 120. Those are the prime numbers that together to multiply to make 120. All right, so we'll leave you with your turn, and I'd like you to make a factor tree for the number 36, and then write the string of numbers that have a product of 36, the string of prime factors that together multiply to make 36. And remember that the essential question of this video was, how do we find all the prime factors that make up a number? And the short answer is we use this factor tree. Be sure to write questions that you have about this in your notes so that we can discuss them in class together. And be sure you have your notes ready to use and reference as we work on this more.